NHRA Mellow Yellow Drag Racing is an unpredictable sport. The classes of Top Fuel and Funny Car can produce 11,000 horsepower and speeds that top 330 miles per hour. And when things go wrong, the results can be spectacular.
Hi, I'm Louis Bloom. This is Funny Car driver Jack Beckman, and for the next 30 minutes, we'll explore some of the amazing incidents that happened this season in NHRA Mellow Yellow Drag Racing. What makes it even more amazing? They walked away.
We're here at legendary Pomona Raceway, standing 700 feet from the starting line. A Top Fuel dragster will already have accelerated to over 300 miles per hour in under 3 seconds at this point. It takes tremendous skill and courage to pilot these landlocked missiles. Our first incident features a Top Fuel world champion who had an unfortunate encounter with the wall right here.
Since 1961, the NHRA has kicked off their season at the Auto Club Pomona Raceway. Britney Force, who 3 months earlier won the 2017 Mellow Yellow Top Fuel Championship, hoped to start her 2018 campaign on a winning note. Instead, in her first round race with Terry Haddock, Brittany would learn a tough lesson about driving a Top Fuel dragster.
Oh, and Brittany was there and gave it away, and Brittany, the champ, is in the wall. Pause has fallen over Auto Club Raceway.
Brittany's parents, mother Lori, and the 16-time champion John Force rushed down track concerned about the condition of their daughter. Jack, people take for granted how hard these cars are to control when they spin the tires.
And often when they smoke the tires, they don't go straight. What caused the crash is Brittany lifted off the throttle to try to regain traction. We call that pedaling. When she got back on the throttle, the car wasn't pointed straight down track. And by the time she realized it and stepped off it again, it had already over-rotated and drove her into that wall. To me, Louis, the amazing thing about this wreck, when they downloaded their data recorder after the run, that impact with the left wall was more than 100 G's of deceleration.
A reflective Britney Force looks back on the worst crash of her drag racing career.
It's terrifying to watch. I hate watching it. I'm shocked that I was in that thing, and it frustrates me that I can't remember any of it.
I was always wondering when it was going to happen, and it was ugly, but you know, we've gone back and looked at it, and we know what happened. You know, we just try to move forward from there.
When the NHRA in 30, They Walked Away comes back, we will feature another ex-champion and his odyssey of shredding funny car bodies. And later, a sportsman racer whose race car did something we haven't seen in the NHRA for years. Cruz Pedregon has won 2 Mellow Yellow championships in the funny car division, despite being one of the few full-time single-car teams. By the time of NHRA's return to Richmond, Virginia in 2018, Pedregon had 1 event victory and the performance to get him back to champion's podium for the first time in 10 years. Yet, in qualifying session 3, the cruiser would suffer a major setback.
Wow.
Wow is right. You know, to make 11,000 horsepower, we're generating tremendous cylinder pressure. You got all that blower boost and all that nitromethane, and it has to be sealed in that chamber. If something goes wrong with the tune-up, that intake valve can literally pull right through the retainer. Now that combustion gets up into the supercharger and you get that big explosion. And as strong as these carbon fiber bodies are, once you've split one of them at 300 miles an hour, the aerodynamics are just going to tear them to pieces.
We caught up with Cruiser after an expensive day here at Richmond.
Man, as explosions go, that was one of the bigger ones I've ever had. But telling you earlier, the bombs are bigger today. You know, we're putting more fuel through these engines and all that, but no warning, no nothing. It just blew up. So a lot of damage, but you know, the Snap-on car will ride again.
4 races later in Denver, Pedregon had still not found the problem as he lined up once again alongside Tim Wilkerson. And just like at Richmond, Cruz would throw the Bandimere Raceway crowd for all the wrong reasons.
And this is exactly why you don't debut a brand new funny car body at Denver. The high altitude thin air of Denver gives the crew chiefs fits. To compensate, they have to give the engine a little more of everything. More supercharger overdrive, more nitromethane percentage, and they have to advance the ignition timing. On this run, that tune-up wasn't happy, and it literally shattered one of the connecting rods, causing that huge explosion. This is a graphic illustration of how important that hand shield could be. With the body on the car, even if there's a fire, you have that firewall as a barrier between you and the engine. In the case of Cruz's run, the last line of defense between that fire and his safety equipment was that mandated hand shield.
The car's been on really great runs. We've just been, kind of bitten by the breakage bug and some in the valve train. So we're going to replace all that stuff. And we just got to, we know what we have to do. Been doing this a long time. So, it's tough right now. The guys have been putting in a lot of hours, but, the payoff will come. I keep telling them that we can win.
The Lucas Oil Drag Racing Series is the backbone of the NHRA. From entry-level classes all the way up to top alcohol dragster funny car, the majority of the racers you see at our events compete in these categories. One of those drivers is Steve Collier, who this year at Topeka, Kansas found out the hard way you don't have to be a professional to make. They walked away.
Steve Collier of Benton, Louisiana is a participant of NHRA's Lucas Oil Sportsman Series. He also races in Super Comp and Super Gas. But here at Heartland Motorsports Park in Topeka, Kansas, Steve was running in the fastest of the sportsman classes, top alcohol dragster. In a very rare occurrence, Mr. Collier would have the unfortunate experience known as a blowover.
An immediate tire smoke for Monroe Guest, who went, whoa, no, a blowover at the top end of the racetrack. Steve Collier's car stood up on end and turned over backwards at about 1,000 feet.
Jack, it appeared Steve got on and off the throttle right before the wheel stand.
Right, Lewis, and that's known as pedaling the car. In fact, that is exactly what caused the wheel stand. Steve could sense that the car was shaking the tires. It feels like you're driving over bricks. He gets off the throttle and back on to try to get the car to smooth out. And without the 11,000 horsepower that the Mellow Yellow cars make, these things can't break the clutch free. That clutch stays locked up. Those rear tires aren't slipping, and the only thing that's going to give at that point, that front end's going to come up in the air. And even though Steve's lifted off the throttle, once the car gets up to a certain point, he's just a passenger. The wind is literally going to push the car the rest of the way over. And if you're doubtful that that's the case, that wind ripped all the panels off that car.
Steve Collier suffered some minor injuries, but returned to competition later in the season at the U.S. Nationals, and he's having a new race car being built for top alcohol dragster.
Wow, Jack, that was a wild ride. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Fortunately not. I love my dragsters. I got thousands of runs in them, but us funny car drivers are perfectly capable of making our own highlight reels. When we come back, Matt Hagan and Robert Height are going to show you guys exactly what I'm talking about.
Boy, look at Todd Simpson get close to the center line.
Whoa, hang on, Mike.
And Green's in trouble, boy. Oh, man.
Chad Green came across the course. Tommy Johnson spins him and goes kablooey. Whoa, his car went up in smoke and then the top of the motor disappeared. Oh, kaboom! The convertible in the left side, I mean, that thing just exploded at the 8th mile.
Welcome back to NHRA in 30. They walked away.
Over the years in Top Fuel and Funny Car, there have been many epic battles between the super teams of Don Schumacher Racing and John Force Racing. The two quickest and fastest funny car drivers on the planet are DSR's Matt Hagan and JFR's Robert Height.
The teams have had historic championship battles, but at Gainesville Raceway, Robert and Matt made history of a different kind.
A huge reason for these super team successes are the two crew chiefs bringing their cars into the stage beams. Dickie Venerables for Hagan's black Mopar and Jimmy Brock for the red, white, and blue Chevy of Robert Height. Both men known for history-making performance, reluctantly would become charter members in an exclusive club.
Couple of champions side by side. Height, Hagan. Oh, and a double body blower. My goodness, what is happening in the fuel funny car category?
Even more rare than Collier's blowover is two funny car bodies blowing off near the finish line. Both drivers would have to fight for control through the debris and smoke to emerge unhurt from this incredible situation. Jack, have you ever seen this before?
Yeah, but not in stereo. You know, right about now I can think of two great reasons why not to drive a nitro funny car. Maybe the toughest part about accidents like this is that concussion from the explosion will shove the race car down so hard it'll scrape the chassis on the track, and the resulting rebound is going to lift the rear tires off the ground, and now the car is bouncing. Oftentimes, you could have 2, maybe even 3 tires off the racetrack, and you're fighting for control. Add to that the fact you got fire in your face, you often have oil all over your visor, your visibility's almost gone. It can be pretty terrifying.
We spoke to the winner of this once-in-a-lifetime crazy funny car race.
It got up in the air pretty good, and as it was coming down, you could try to steer it in between, like when it was hopping around, and I looked over and I could see Robert. I was like, wow, he's blowed up too, you know, so it was just one of those things where it was a wild ride. I think that probably will make a highlight reel for a while, you know, but glad Robert's okay, I'm okay, you know, but this is what our fans pay for. Unfortunately, it cost us a lot of money right there, but we got the win light, you know, and we got great sponsors like Pennzoil to keep us going, so, you know, it just, I don't know. Crazy wild ride. I'm like shaking and adrenaline and stuff like that, but like I said, we'll put another Mopar body on this thing and go try to race caps, I guess. Thanks.
Later in the season, amidst a tight points battle, Robert would provide more excitement as he would defend his points lead against Tim Wilkerson for the title at St. Louis.
Tim Wilkerson loses traction. Robert blows up and gets there first and bangs the Auto Club Chevy into the left side wall.
He blew up, he hit the wall, and he won the drag race. A lot of times when you see a funny car blow up that bad, the body will completely come off. In Height's case, it partially separated. The aerodynamic forces there basically turned the car into a rudder and steered him right into the wall. And I don't care if you're King Kong, there's nobody that's going to correct the steering in a situation like this. That car hit the wall so hard, it tore the front end off, it broke Robert's collarbone, and he slid down it for another 800 feet. To me, the most impressive thing, that team had 1 week, but nobody took a day off there. They put a new Auto Club car together. Robert shows up in Dallas with pins and stitches over his broken collarbone, hops in that thing, and they took him to his second straight winner's circle.
Our Bruno Massa will talk with Robert about a safety device which gave him a chance to race and keep himself in the hunt for the championship.
What broke my shoulder was basically the seat belts. So you had to protect that. You know, I just had surgery, and so I needed something to guide the seat belts. Luckily for me, Simpson had already made something for Greg Anderson when he had open heart surgery, you know, to protect his chest. That was my starting point. We took a mannequin and built it to the same specifications as Robert Height and connected the dots, made a little air gap under here for my collarbone, and it works perfect. In fact, I think I'll be using this from now on.
Next on NHRA in 30, they walked away. John Force, NHRA's winningest driver, shows us the fortitude that helped make him drag racing's Iron Man.
Welcome back to NHRA in 30. They walked away. John Force is NHRA's winningest driver with 149 event victories and 16 championships. Early on in his career, John was known for 2 things, crashes and explosions. It actually took him 10 final rounds to finally score his first Wally.
And during the first half of this season, John would revisit those struggles with multiple gremlins that plagued his Nitro Funny car. Despite the adversity, and like he'd done so many times earlier in his career, John Force would never give up.
Much like his daughter Brittany, John Force's first entry into this edition of They Walked Away comes at the season-opening Winter Nationals. John showed the hometown crowd how to properly turn a Camaro funny car body into confetti.
And again, that telltale white smoke means we've had a cylinder go out, and eventually a second one drops on this one right before the car explodes. Once he dropped those cylinders, the rest of the engine went lean. It actually failed some of the main studs that support the crankshaft, allowing that to drop down, breaks the connecting rods, and this is the result. Now at this point, John's already lost an expensive funny car body. His goal right now is to mitigate further damage and keep that car off the guard wall.
John would emerge from the wrecked funny car a bit groggy, but would get back in the seat the next day. 2 weeks later, in Phoenix, the feeling was that it couldn't be any worse for John Force Racing than wrecking 2 cars in Pomona, as the 16-time champ lined up against Johnny Lindbergh in a second-round match. Lo and behold, they had equaled that amount of destruction.
Johnny had to rattle it. Oh, kaboom for John Force. He blows the body completely off of it, comes across in front of Johnny Lindbergh, and the two of them get together. A scary moment here at Wild Horse, but John Force's car just exploded at the finish line.
Daughter Courtney is obviously concerned about her father, who was just involved in one of the most serious wrecks of his career.
And Lewis, stop me if you've heard this before. Nitro funny car, dropped cylinders, engine explosion, body destruction. What makes this an interesting run is it looks like a lot of the underbody bracing actually got into the steering mechanism on John's car, and that could have contributed into shoving him across the center line. Now, Johnny Lindbergh has just made his run, deployed the parachutes. He's still focused straight ahead, and all of a sudden, things go dark in front of him. That's another funny car coming right through his windshield. To add extra insult to it, they get tangled in each other's parachutes, and those last 2 hits in the wall were still some pretty significant impacts.
As Johnny Lindbergh walks back to the pit, shocked at what just happened, the emotional distress of another serious crash by John was shown by Brittany, Courtney, Mom Lori.
And Lewis, it's hard to emphasize just how emotional this is. As a driver, you're in the car getting tended to by the safety safari. The family has no idea on your situation until they hear it over the loudspeaker.
Like the battle-hardened warrior that he is, John was back at the very next race in Gainesville, Florida. Crew Chief John Schaefer, along with the brain-trusted JFR, put in a major effort to cure the Peak Chevrolet of its appetite for destruction. After this second qualifying session, Force and team would have to reevaluate those efforts.
Let me put this into perspective. You're John Force, you're 3 races into the season, you've wrecked 4 funny cars, and you're not sure what's causing it.
Some years you just get snake bit. I've been through this before, and there's only one person to talk to, and that's God, and we're going to have a meeting here in about an hour and find out what I have done wrong in life, because I have done something wrong. My job is to find more money because this is starting to get expensive. As long as I'm okay, I can find more money.
By the time summer arrived and the NHRA Tour made its annual visit to Chicago, the Force team seemed to have the exploding funny car problem solved. In this case, racing his daughter Courtney in qualifying, the most experienced funny car racer on tour made a rare driving mistake.
John's in the wall hard.
Oh, the throttle's stuck too. Hang on, John.
These cars will jump up and bite you, even if you're the guy with more runs in a nitro funny car than anybody else in history. John pedaled this car, and with the swept back headers, when he got back on the throttle, there might have been a cylinder or 2 out on the right side. That thrust differential actually turned the car to the right and put it in the wall. As soon as it made contact, it broke the steering. That's why that car continues down the wall. The body keeps getting shoved over, hits the injector linkage, and is opening up that injector partway.
We caught up with the 16-time champ after this wild ride at Route 66.
This race car will never beat me. You understand that? It's trying, but it ain't gonna. I'm gonna fight this son of a bitch till I figure it out, and that's a fact.
One can say unequivocally that John Force still is the most determined and courageous driver in drag racing. Wow, Jack, what inspiration from the 16-time champion.
And John proves you still have to be tough and courageous to race in the NHRA. On behalf of myself and every other racer out there, I'd like to extend a sincere thank you to everybody on the NHRA Safety Safari. Without those men and women being where we need them, when we need them, we literally couldn't put these races on.
That's all the time we have for now. On behalf of Jack Beckman, yours truly, Lewis Bloom, we'll see you next time on NHRA in 30, They Walked Away.